Welcome again, everyone, to another session of the 17th annual Transforming the Teaching and Learning Environment, excuse me, virtual conference. I'm Bob Ailes, I'm your moderator. We have with us Dr. Tarsha Rogers. She's worked in diverse environments, professional experience ranging from healthcare, continuing education, and organizational development, the public school, and higher education administration and instruction. She's currently director of the Center for Teaching and Learning at Elizabeth City State University, where she leads faculty development efforts in immersive learning and experiential labs, which includes esports and virtual reality. And she's also an adjunct professor for communication studies. We also have Professor Clarence Goss. Got a career spanning over 25 years. He started when he was about 7 years old. Clarence has amassed a wealth of experience in the visual arts, art education, and creative fields. His background includes roles in printing, entertainment, photography, advertising, and K through 12 grade education throughout Eastern North Carolina. Currently, he serves as assistant professor of graphic design in the Department of Music and Visual Arts and the director of the 1704 Media Productions at Elizabeth City. So let me turn it over to Tarsha and Clarence.
All right. Thank you, Bob, for the introduction. Dr. Rogers, I think we'll start off with you.
Sure. Thank you again for joining us today for our presentation. I'm very excited to share our experience in implementing virtual reality on our campus at Elizabeth City State University. Professor Goss and I have been working very closely on this project together, and that's why we decided to do the presentation here today together. So he's going to also share some very impressive experiences with his students with you today. So just to give a brief background of our university, Elizabeth City State University is uniquely situated as a small HBCU. And for those who may not be familiar with HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, we're located in northeastern North Carolina, as well as a constituent campus of the University of North Carolina system. Our small campus is located in a rural area and serves approximately, I believe Professor Goss just said, about 27 to 2,800 students. So we're pretty small. Okay. I would first like to share with you 3 guiding questions that started us on our journey to bringing virtual reality and immersive technologies to our campus. The first one was, how can virtual reality and immersive technologies be used to enhance active experiential learning on our campus? The second, can VR transform the way faculty teach concepts to students? That was a big question, for us. And when you think of how professors, do their lectures and do, just various other teaching strategies, this would be a active learning strategy that hopefully would make a huge impact on our students. Then lastly, how can VR or immersive technologies provide opportunities that our students would not otherwise have in their physical learning spaces, hence bringing the unreachable into reach? So essentially, we wanted to introduce virtual reality to our faculty as a way to provide active learning and experiential learning to a greater degree for our students, which we believe increases student impact when it comes to student engagement, motivation, and confidence in their ability to do the work required of their degree programs. Okay, so during today's session, we are going to first share with you virtual reality and immersive technologies background and theoretical underpinnings. And then we'll have a faculty demonstration of VR use. Professor Goss is going to share with you in that portion, and then also provide some application of VR, and end it with the power of possibility, final remarks about VR at ECSU. So when it comes to virtual reality and immersive technologies such as virtual reality have become increasingly prevalent in higher education over the past 5 years. I think we're all aware of that. And institutions are incorporating these innovative tools to support academic programs, foster technological innovation, and expand learning experiences for students. So in this portion of the presentation, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to talk about a few of the theoretical foundations that helped us, kind of shape what we were going to do in our spaces, as well as provide some implementation strategies and real-world applications of immersive learning in the higher education setting. So the first of these theoretical foundations is experiential learning, obviously. And here, immersive learning experiences are grounded in the principles of experiential learning, where students actively engage with and reflect on their experiences. This approach allows for the application of knowledge in real-world and simulated scenarios, fostering deeper understanding and retention. Then we also have situated cognition. And this theory emphasizes the importance of context in learning. And in this instance, immersive technologies create authentic environments that situate knowledge and skills within relevant contexts for students, thus enabling them to develop a holistic understanding of the subject matter. And then lastly, we looked at constructivism. And in the constructivist learning theory, we underpin the design of immersive learning experiences where students actively construct their own understanding by interacting and exploring virtual learning environments. This approach encourages learners to be active participants in the learning process. So each of these are, I think, kind of shaped our perspective of how we were going to implement virtual reality at our university. But I would say that experiential learning theory was probably at the forefront of our thinking and largely influenced how we approached virtual reality in the classroom and also implemented it in our curriculum. And as I mentioned earlier, Elizabeth City State University is a HBCU. And so we looked at some of the challenges faced by HBCU universities that possibly considered implementing virtual reality on their campuses. And a couple of challenges that most of these universities faced was resource constraints being one of those. These were hurdles that we had to overcome, and I'm happy to say that we overcame with the support of our chancellor and our provost and their administrative teams. We were able to secure funds to purchase innovative technologies such as the MetaQuest 2s and then later MetaQuest 3s, as well as 360 cameras, several higher-end headsets, and computers. Then the other, challenge, we don't want to say problem, but challenge was, outdated infrastructure. So again, those technologies are key, to making sure that you have the most up-to-date technologies. And we were able to do that at our university. Okay, and one of the things that is just our, at the forefront of the pride that we have in the project that we completed was the fact that we were able to empower our underrepresented students. In many student success models, particularly when we're talking about underserved and underrepresented students, research has supported that students are more successful when they have each of these that we have on the screen. So accessibility and inclusion, educational experiences are more accessible. Immersive technologies have the potential to bridge the gap and provide access to educational experiences that were previously out of reach for students from underrepresented areas or lower resource communities. Then also hands-on learning. VR and other immersive technologies offer a level of interactivity and engagement that traditional classroom settings often struggle to match. And that's, we've seen it, our students are far more engaged when they are, engaging in hands-on learning. And then you bring in, these MetaQuest headsets and, all of these new technologies, and, the possibilities are endless, when it comes to keeping them engaged and motivated in their major. And it's fun for them. And then also bridging the opportunity gap. And this is very critical. For students from underserved communities, immersive technologies can help level the playing field. And by that, we mean, these students, they're providing these students access to educational experiences and resources that they may not have in the physical, but they can, explore different places. They can go on virtual field trips and, various other things they can do in a virtual environment that they can't do physically, possibly because of financial restraints. And then we have immersive learning in action. And as I just mentioned, these are some of the things that we were able to do with our virtual learning labs. And this included virtual field trips, simulated scenarios, collaborative learning. We've been very successful in getting faculty from multiple disciplines, which is great, to collaborate on projects, as well as students from various disciplines. Even outside of the classes, guys, through academic clubs and organizations, to create VR experiences on their own, host events, and also teach other students how to use virtual reality. So we're very excited about that. And then the personalized instruction, the extraordinary thing about VR is that it can be tailored to individual needs, allowing for personalized instruction, adaptive learning, and the provision of real-time feedback, which can lead to improving student learning outcomes and increased student engagement. And that's some of the studies that we're doing along the lines of, improving student learning outcomes is, how adaptive the virtual reality environment has been for students to learn. So we're looking at students who, in particular courses who have what their grades were prior to bringing that experience into the virtual reality labs, and looking at the before and after scenario of their academic achievement. Okay, so now we're going to have a faculty demonstration with Professor Goss. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Rogers. Hello, everybody. Again, I'm Clarence Goss, Assistant Professor of Graphic Design and Department of Music and Visual Arts, as well as the Director of 1704 Media Production, which is a student-led and ran media production company organization on the campus of Louisiana State University. So pretty much echoing a lot of what Dr. Rogers said, with implementing VR on our campus, One of the biggest things that I saw, and again, I've taught K through 12th grade art in a rural county. If we're looking at the map that's on the screen, so where you see the marker at, that's Elizabeth City State University. Drive in an hour inward towards the state, and I actually grew up and worked in that county called Martin County. Very rural, Title I school, where farmland, very rural. So access to a lot of things was there wasn't a lot of access to certain things that students wanted to get to as far as the museum. I know one of the biggest obstacles I had, I wanted to take students to the North Carolina Museum of Art. And if you look at the calendar, that's from Elizabeth City, that's 3 hours away. So I don't know how many people here are teaching in grade school, but a lot of times in those rural areas and underfunded areas, getting the budget to just travel with students is sometimes the biggest hurdle. When you have to pay for gas, get a bus, pay for gas, pay for a bus driver, and then getting them there and back before 3 o'clock so they can catch the bus to go home if their parents don't have means to pick them up. So one of the things I did keep my bus license just so I could cut the cost on a lot of my students so they didn't have to pay for a bus driver. And then do a lot of fundraising. But when I came to the university, I thought that wouldn't be such a hurdle. Hey, we can just take a ride and go. But from Elizabeth City, and I'm actually an alum of Elizabeth City State. One of the things I've noticed also was that there's still a huge distance to try to get to those museums that I want to show students, a Jacob Lawrence or a Romare Bearden or Picasso. To get to those museums, I'm looking somewhere between an hour and 45-minute drive or 3-hour drive, whether we're going to Virginia. For those who's not familiar with Elizabeth City, we sit about 45 to an hour from Virginia border. To get to the center part of the state where our state capital, Raleigh, is, that's a 3-hour drive. So again, we're talking about budget restrictions and how we're going to get there was the thing. So with the implementation of the VR, I'm able to bring them, and let me stop there. And I would never say that seeing a physical painting, seeing a digital painting is actually better than seeing, or any way implied that it's better than seeing in the physical. But it is actually a resource. It gives students a resource and opportunity to see those where they may not necessarily get an opportunity to do it, especially in certain areas. And it also made a spark. So a lot of my students who are from the Raleigh or the central part of the state who live in close proximity to those museums, and they've even thought about going until they came and we actually saw, versus looking in a book, we would actually see a Mona Lisa or to see a painting up close in VR. So then they want to go, oh, let me go to my nearest arts museum to take a look at it. So what I'm doing now is teaching my students to think beyond ink. How can we use virtual reality and these immersive technologies in our field? I teach graphic design, which is already a technology-based industry and field. So one of the mottos and things that I have is like, how do we think beyond ink? Thinking beyond ink versus this, we're printing, designing stuff for paper and two-dimensional, go up on a wall or whatever. How do we now create things that can actually go in our hands? So we do a lot of UI, UX design, user interface, user experience when it comes to mobile app development and front-end design. But I'm telling you, there's a whole nother dimension that we got to think about out there. And so we're looking into and we're working with things like, again, virtuality. So in the slide you're about to see coming up, the video is one where I have a student, next slide, Dr. Rogers. It's a student who's actually using her artistic skills and she's transferring those over from working with physical medium, acrylic paint, into a digital, and then later into a virtual reality area. Okay. And there's no talking, there's actually some nice little music behind. But yeah, so this is one of my students. She's now using acrylic paint, very artistic and talented artist. She's using an acrylic paint medium. She's drawn a picture of a flower. Now she's actually in the studio in our design lab and using a Wacom tablet, using Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator. And she's creating the same style image, but using a digital format. So again, what she's doing now is using Wacom tablets, which is translated into Photoshop, which she could later then print out onto canvas or to paper, the size that she would want it. And now you'll see her using those same skills and talents that she have to now incorporate those into a VR setting. And then the other two, the learning curve she had to quickly, and she adjusted to it very quickly, is pressure. So using when we're painting, there's a lot of pressure that you add to get darker tones or broader strokes. So she quickly learned and evolved how to get that effect with using the virtual paintbrush, which is actually, that app is called Tilt Brush, to get those. And so we're incorporating that now, taking those skills that they have and using those in a virtual state. Another application that we're now incorporating with the help of Dr. Rogers and the Center of Teaching and Learning and the program over there is body swaps. And body swaps help students with those soft skills that a lot of times we kind of miss in this day and age. I was talking to students, matter of fact, we have a career fair coming up soon. So this is a way of them to practice communicating. In this day, a lot of students want to communicate on their phones, they're texting. I have several text chats with some of my working groups. We have the students in clubs and orgs, and they will text all night, and they'll say, come to my office for office meeting, and they'll sit in here quiet. But you just text me 5 minutes ago this whole paragraph for like 5 or 10, 2 or 3 hours of this information. Now we're in the room and you're quiet. So getting them to that face-to-face interaction and how to work and talk back face-to-face with an individual, especially when it comes to interviews for jobs or graduate school applications or interviews of any type. And again, in the graphic design field, when you're working with clients, how do you interact orally with clients in oral communication? So with body swaps, it's actually a module there that I set up in my class, in my seminar class, where they go through modules, whether it's public speaking, interviews. There's several different ones, and I just went blank on them, that they can go through that works with their communication skills, interviewing skills, public speaking, that they can do. There's actually one with dealing with DEI and just and empathy. So is this the one, I think, Dr. Rogers, that shows an example of using body swap? So again, here's a student who's now preparing to get into body swap, which is, again, a real world simulator. And they will select their avatar. So basically what she's explaining here is is actually doing an interview, a job interview. And they're asking her to explain who she is. Just give us some information about who she is. And she explains. And at the end, when she explains it, it gives an assessment on the context, their action, and their body posture and their eye contact. So give them a little feedback on how they can better improve and what they need to improve on. So the more they do it, they can pick up on those skills or those things that it may be lacking in. A lot of times it's eye contact. I've seen for a lot of my students. So once we've gone through this module, one of the things we do is actually physical face-to-face interviews with them, or they'll do mock interviews in the class. But this way is a way of them just to acknowledge it in a closed, private environment that they can at least practice on those skills. And bringing my students into the lab definitely helps that in that VR setting. So they can go in on their own time and practice interviewing. And then we have like career fair coming up. Here's possibly hopefully build their confidence up as they're speaking more, because you actually have to speak to the avatar and they hear your voice and they will measure that the speed of your talking. And a lot of times I found myself, I speak very fast. So I'm constantly have to, when I took the test 3 or 4 times, say, yeah, you need to slow down. And I'm working on that myself on how to definitely slow down when I am talking, speaking in certain engagements. So it helps the students where you're speaking too low. So it helps them on those little things that they need to practice on. And then we just don't leave it there in VR. We actually take it to the physical so then they can practice on one another before it's actually time to go into those real world settings. But again, using those immersive applications like this has definitely helped my students. And again, one of the things for me, I'm all about staying current with the technology. We had a term in graphic design, we didn't want to be a graphic dinosaur, where time is constantly evolving and we're still stuck doing the same things we've been doing since the 90s, the 80s, this print, everything is print. We even know now we're doing this conference virtual, that we have to evolve with time or get left behind. So again, so what we're trying to do beyond just making flyers and posters, my seminar class, what we're working on this semester is actually using more immersive technology. So they have to come up with projects that they can incorporate VR, virtual reality, or AR, augmented reality, and even mixed reality in there. So the projects they just pitched to me yesterday, some are looking to do, one of the projects they're doing, so when freshmen want to come and see their dorm room during orientation or before, if they're looking at the university, how can I decorate my room before I get there? So they're doing a model of an actual dorm room, and they're putting the furniture that comes standard in the dorm room. And then a student will be able to using their phones or headsets to go in and arrange their rooms and decorate it virtually before they actually get there to see what it'll look like using the dimensions. So they reached out to design and construction to get the actual dimensions of a dorm room, and several of the frequent ones by freshmen. And then they'll put those dimensions in and actually build it 3D scale so they can go in and see what it looks like to be in that room. And how would I move my room in a single occupancy room or a double occupancy room. Another ones are doing a virtual tour on campus. There are virtual tours, but they're doing it from a student's perspective, using 360 and point of view action cams. So they will have somebody actually walking around campus, going in to the laundry room, going to the basketball gym or the weight room, and it's showing students these different point of views that they can see in a virtual state before they actually get here. So little things like that they're using, they incorporate beyond just what we've normally done from web design or print, using this technology. And I'll wrap up. One of the other things that we're using, I sit on the committee for the International Studies program. And Dr. Rogers mentioned students are studying abroad. So we have a lot of students now who are studying abroad. One of our students actually went to Panama recently, and we're planning a faculty-led trip to Panama in spring break. So now I'm strapping every student I can with a GoPro and a 360 cam so that we can capture those moments while we're there and then bring those back. And so students who can't go, who are interested going to Panama, they can see it again from a student's point of view and not just a Hollywood stock or production stock point of view or all the thought, but they can actually see it from one of their fellow peers and see where they walked and where they ate, where they visited from that in a virtual headset. So these are just some ways that we're trying to implement this virtuality and using the technology that we have on campus. I've been fortunate to have now on campus uh, with our students. And one of the things I've learned too, if you just give it to them, a lot of times they can figure it out one a lot quicker than we can, and their ideas almost limitless what they can do with it. So I hope this helps somebody, especially if you're looking to get into it, using virtuality, how you can implement it in your classroom. I say if you just give it to the students, they will figure it out. So the implementation of the VR ECSU, we did it in the 2023-2024 academic year. We had a grand opening for the VR and esports lab. Also in that same building, we have our 1704 media production. So it sort of works out. We have virtual reality, we have our immersive technology, and our media studio, which is sort of now become a hub for creativity in that building. Faculty-led workshops by Dr. Rogers and the Center of Teaching and Learning. The VR lab is constantly being stocked with content that faculty and students can use, whether it's body swaps, me tilt brush, the Salvador Dali exhibit that's in there. And I'm teaching surrealism this semester in one of my classes, so this is definitely will help with them. The one-on-one sessions, class visits. I know myself, I have a schedule set now for this whole semester for my students to come in, whether using body swaps or we'll be using to test out what they're working on in class as well. And like Dr. Rogers said, students are engaging in the special projects, whether it's their clubs, like our Hispanic Heritage Club. They did the trip to Panama, and when the students did a trip to Panama to show that as part of his Hispanic Heritage Club, and then just sessions. So, and with faculty. So I can say definitely the VR room lab has been a great added addition to my curriculum, and able to add things outside of the book and give students another dimension of how they can implement things in our curriculum.
And if I can also add, I don't know what each of your disciplines are, but and not just to put a plug in to body swaps, but this is it's been a great application for various disciplines, depending on what they're looking for. We've had public speaking courses, of course, come in and use body swaps, to teach their students public speaking skills, as well as interview skills. We've had business communication courses come to the lab to use body swaps, English, even STEM courses wanting to enhance their students' career preparation. So there's a variety of uses for body swaps, as well as other applications that we have in our virtual reality lab. We made sure that we were diverse enough for each of our disciplines to have some, content that they can, use for their each of their programs.
Yeah, I know several professors in emergency management has used it, as well as the CPR. I brought students in to use CPR training in some of my classes. So there's an endless possibilities of how you can implement this in your class or your curriculums, regardless of what it is. Back to you, Dr. Rogers.
Okay. And this slide here is just if anyone has not implemented immersive technology or virtual reality at your university, these were just a few things to make sure that you consider as you are implementing that type of technology on your campus, and particularly if you're setting up a lab such as we did. First of all, faculty development is critical. You have to make sure you have the buy-in, as well as training and support for faculty to feel confident enough to bring their students into your space, as well as utilizing the headsets and being open to using this type of technology. Also, interdisciplinary collaboration, as I mentioned earlier, One of the things that we were most proud of is that we were able to bring together different disciplines. And I know each of you on your campus, a lot of times, various disciplines that kind of stick to their own. So it was great to see so many disciplines come together and work on projects in the virtual reality labs, as well as, students of various disciplines utilizing the virtual reality to create and share. Then, of course, it's also going to take continuous evaluation. Everything doesn't work for everybody. So it's, just kind of a matter of just trying different things out to see what works for students as well as faculty. Everyone's not going to like body swaps. So what is it that, someone I'm not going to use Professor Goss's discipline graphic design, but someone in social work, what is it that they need as far as content? So it's been a matter of just kind of pulling people to the side and asking, what they're interested in and letting them know what we have available and what's available out there in the virtual world. Then lastly, of course, technological infrastructure, just making sure that you do your research when you are purchasing the various technology that's out there. There's a lot of AI generated technology that we are still implementing newer and innovative technologies in our lab, just to make sure that we're keeping up and providing our students with the latest and greatest in technology. Okay, and lastly, we're just going to share a few of our photos that we have in VR, and Professor Goss, feel free to chime in. This is a photo of our virtual reality lab. And we've had, the furniture that we purchased is very versatile in that we're able to, if we have a large class, we're able to accommodate larger classes as well as smaller classes, but also keep it intimate enough to where, people have enough room to space out if they're standing up with their headsets on, or of course, you see the chairs, they can also sit down and, just have, the experiences in various modes.
Yeah, I've brought in a class of, I think this semester was 11, and I think last year I brought in like 15 or something, and they were able to get in and work, playing various different applications and do very well in there. So.
And these are a few photos of our teacher collaboration. As I mentioned, we consulted with various faculty determining the course alignments and trying to figure out, what content works best for whatever their discipline may have been, or what they were trying to achieve with their particular class or their curriculum. We did some outreach to the students to let them know that we had, these spaces available for them. So here you see myself as well as the coordinator for the labs. His name is Greg Miller. And we're in the cafeteria, just kind of allowing students to demonstrate the use of the headsets. And then here we're at an open house event on our campus, promoting our new VR and as well as the esports lab that we opened up last year. And here's more open house. And here we have our ROTC students experiencing VR. As I mentioned, there's content for everybody.
And this is actually my class. Last year, my art history class came in, and we was able to see some art galleries and art pieces. I think there's Monet. There was a Salvador Dali exhibit. And then it actually sparked the conversation for some of my students. 'Cause, again, representation was the biggest thing too. So it was wasn't a lot of African American art galleries that was out there. So now some students are taking it upon themselves. How can we create some using different software in order to do that? So that's one of the projects that we're currently working on. Just by going there and just playing around with it. Like I say, you see one student's actually doing the tilt brush, the virtual painting. From those conversations, kind of sparked other projects they want to work on.
Yes. Okay, and here's our undergraduate research week. And both Professor Goss and I both participated. We led a student and faculty panel talking about VR on our campus. You want to say anything about that experience, Professor Goss?
It was a great experience being along with the students. The young man I'm sitting beside, he had come up with emergency management students, aviation emergency management students who would incorporate into their projects and curriculum. So it was great sitting beside him, how they were using it, again, in a discipline that was far different from my own. And then the young lady who has the black jacket, she's actually one of my students who's first one to use the tilt brush application with doing the digital painting, and how that changed how she saw art in another platform, how to use it. So again, it's always great to see how students, you hit that aha moment when they are able to figure something out on a whole other platform. And to see using VR other than just for gaming, how it can be implemented into other situations.
And the last slide I have for you is our Hispanic Heritage Club event that was held in VR. And this was student-led, which is awesome. This is one of our students here. You see where the flag, he led this event, and he was able to, show our visitors as well as other students how to get into the headsets. And I believe they were exploring, it wasn't Panama, but I think it was, do you know where that was, Professor Goss? I'm trying to think where, I think the
Yes, so
Dominican
this is
Republic.
Panama. Yeah, well, this was Panama.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was Josh. I believe this is his trip to Panama, the one I was mentioning.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So in addition to them exploring Panama, they also had recipes, which there's an application that on the headsets that they were able to share those Hispanic recipes and demonstrate cooking as well as the Hispanic heritage recipes that were shared, which is great. And it was well attended. So that was one of the huge events that we had in our virtual reality lab. So that's all we have for today. If there are any questions, I'm going to share our sources here for anyone who's interested.
Well, that was great. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
again, lots of ways you can use virtual reality to take people places they're not able to physically go, and so much potential there.
Yeah.
Well, if no other questions, then we'll call it a wrap. And Clarence and Tarsha, thank you so much for your time to do this. I really appreciate it.
Very well. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.